Have you ever looked in the mirror and just seen this persistent, frustrating redness staring back at you? A flush that just seems to overstay its welcome? Well, if you have, you are definitely not alone. And it might be something more than just having sensitive skin. Today, we're going to get to the bottom of a really common, but pretty widely misunderstood condition: rosacea.
And really, this is the big question, isn't it? Is that redness you see on your cheeks and nose just your natural coloring? Maybe a simple blush? Or is your skin trying to tell you something a little more serious?
And these two pictures show you exactly why it can be so confusing. I mean, look at the one on the left. That could easily be mistaken for some mild irritation or maybe even some adult acne, right? Just a bit of redness, a few bumps. But then you look at the image on the right. Believe it or not, that's the same condition, just at a much more advanced stage. You can see how the skin on the nose has actually thickened. This shows us that rosacea isn't just one thing, it's a whole spectrum.
So let's officially put a name on it: rosacea. Now, there are two words in this definition that are absolutely critical to understand: chronic and inflammatory. Chronic means it's a long-term thing. It's not something that just shows up for a week and then vanishes. And inflammatory means it's being driven by your body's own immune system. And it loves to set up shop right in the middle of your face. We're talking cheeks, nose, forehead, and chin.
To really get a handle on rosacea, we have to break it down. It is not a one-size-fits-all deal. Experts have actually identified 4 distinct subtypes, which I like to think of as the 4 faces of this condition. So let's walk through them one by one to build a really complete picture.
Okay, here's our roadmap for the next few minutes. Now, these names are a total mouthful, so please do not worry, we're going to simplify them. First up, we've got erythema telangiectatic. We're just going to call it ETR. Then there's papulopustular, or PPR for short, and finally phymatose and ocular rosacea. Each one of these is a different way this condition can show up on your skin, and even in your eyes.
All right, let's start with subtype 1, ETR. This is probably the classic picture that pops into your head when you think of rosacea. It's all about that stubborn, persistent redness and those really frequent, sometimes intense flushing episodes. If you get up close to a mirror, you might even see these tiny little broken blood vessels. And on top of it all, the skin just feels sensitive. It might feel tight or even sting a little bit.
Next up, we've got papulopustular rosacea, or PPR. Now, this is the one that gets mistaken for adult acne all the time. You've still got that persistent redness as a base, but now it's joined by red bumps and even some pus-filled pimples. But here is the single most important clue to tell them apart. Unlike acne, rosacea does not have comedones. Those clogged pores we call blackheads and whiteheads? If those aren't there, it's a huge hint that you might be dealing with rosacea. This picture gives us a really clear look at what PPR can involve. You can totally see those inflammatory bumps scattered across the cheeks and nose. But look a little closer at the eye. See that redness and irritation? That's actually another subtype popping up, which just goes to show you how these different faces of rosacea can totally overlap.
Okay, now for a much rarer but visually, pretty dramatic subtype: phymatose rosacea. What's happening here is that the chronic inflammation is causing the skin to actually thicken and build up excess tissue. This leads to a bumpy, enlarged, and kind of irregular texture on the skin's surface. And while it can happen in other places, it's most famously seen on the nose, which is a specific condition known as rhinophema.
And here is a very striking example of what rhinophema looks like. It's so important to understand that this is not just some temporary swelling. This is a physical change to the structure of the skin itself. It's caused by years and years of inflammation that leads to an overgrowth of tissue. It's really a sign of very advanced long-term rosacea.
And last but not least, we have ocular rosacea. This is when rosacea decides to affect the eyes. People who have this often say their eyes feel gritty, like there's sand in them. They can feel dry, they can burn or sting, and they often look watery or bloodshot. But here's the really critical takeaway. Sometimes, the eye symptoms can be the very first or even the only sign that you have rosacea.
Okay, so we've talked about the what. We know the 4 subtypes. Now let's dive into the why. While the exact root cause of rosacea is still a little bit of a scientific mystery, we do know a ton about what can trigger a flare-up.
And this list right here covers some of the biggest culprits. Sun and wind exposure are huge, but so are everyday things, right? Like a hot cup of coffee, your favorite spicy food, a glass of wine, or even just feeling really stressed out. The common thread that ties a lot of these together is that they cause the blood vessels in your face to dilate, to open up, which just cranks up that redness and inflammation.
But beyond all these external triggers, researchers think a major factor might be something much, much smaller. In fact, it's a microscopic little organism that lives in the hair follicles of pretty much every single adult human on the planet.
So meet the Demodex Mite. Now before you panic, these little guys are a totally normal part of our skin's ecosystem. But here's what's so fascinating. Study after study consistently finds a much, much higher density of them on skin that's affected by rosacea.
But here's the scientific plot twist. As this quote points out, we're still kind of in a chicken or the egg situation. Do the mites themselves actually cause the inflammation, or does the inflamed, rosacea-prone skin just create the perfect 5-star resort for these mites to thrive in? Right now, the jury's still out on that one.
All right, we have covered the problem, we've covered the potential causes, so let's shift gears and talk about the most important part, the solution. How do you actually manage this and start taking back control of your skin? And this might be the most important thing you hear today. Right now, there is no cure for rosacea. But, and this is a huge but, it is an incredibly manageable condition, and that management plan is built on 2 fundamental pillars. First, become a detective. Start figuring out what your personal triggers are. And second, this one is non-negotiable, daily use of a good broad-spectrum sunscreen. Now, when those lifestyle changes aren't quite enough, a doctor has a whole toolbox of really effective medical treatments. So let's break this down by what you're trying to fix. For that background redness and those visible blood vessels, there are topical gels that can temporarily shrink them. Or you can go for laser therapies that get rid of them for longer. For the bumps and pimples, there are amazing anti-inflammatory and even anti-parasitic creams like ivermectin that can work wonders. And sometimes oral antibiotics are the way to go. And for those really advanced cases, there are even surgical and specialized options available too.
So, what does all of this mean for living with this condition day to day, for the long haul? Let's talk about the path forward.
Look, the main takeaway here is really one of empowerment. Yes, rosacea is chronic, it's probably something you'll need to manage for a long time, but it is absolutely not something you just have to suffer through. By working with a doctor to create a plan that's tailored just for you, a mix of trigger management, the right skincare, and medical treatments, the symptoms are completely controllable. At the end of the day, understanding what's going on is the first step towards getting control. And by watching this, you've just taken a huge leap forward in understanding your skin. So the real question now is, what are you going to do with this knowledge? What's your next step going to be?